Welcome back to Speak Pact. We are thrilled that you're here with us today. I'm Antoniette Rose, your Speak Pact host, and I am joined by Keith O'Neill, who is a miracle story in himself. We're going to unpack that here in a moment. But he's a psychologist, a psychotherapist, a hypnotherapist, a speaker, an author. His journey to the stage has been nothing short of miraculous and remarkable. So tell us a bit, Keith, about your journey and what I would say catapult, but it's more of how did you drop into speaking?
Well, and there was a drop in actually, as we talked about a little bit, I had a severe head injury. I fell off a 45-foot cliff when I was 26, and I had to learn to walk and talk and do everything all over again. And before that, I had my first two degrees were in psychology and recreation and leisure administration. I used to coach. I was always an athlete. I worked parks and recreation. I thought that was the direction I was going to go. And then I had my injury, and fortunately, I had great people surrounding me, family, wonderful doctors or whatever that really helped me to get where I wanted to be. And so, because I had a pretty good reputation in Parks and Rec, what happened is they came to me, and I couldn't work for somebody because I was a liability because of my inconveniences from my fall. But and they wanted to see eventually if they could hire me, but they couldn't. So they came and asked me to come in and do some consulting work, to run some programs for them, to do some staff training, to do that. So, and that's really kind of how I got into the speaking thing. They would bring me in, they would pay me to come in and train their staff and come up with, programs for, to build team morale and different things. And so that's really how it started. So I started speaking in the parks and rec departments, the family fun centers, skating rinks,
About safety or, like, how did you fall into that?
well,
I
because
even hate saying fall into it because it's so literal in this case.
because of my experience in parks and rec,
Yeah.
because that's what I did. And so, so they really wanted me to come in and to develop some staff training is what they wanted me to do.
Mhm.
Talk about, morale, about, customer service, how you deal with people. Everything I've always taught has been people skills, how to
Gotcha.
deal with people. And in this world right now where everything's becoming tech and everything, that's one of the things that's really being neglected are people skills.
Yeah.
So, so that's where it really, I was kind of just kept moving in that direction to move it. And then I started to realize that, what I'm doing here can apply to many companies out there. And so I just started, building and building. I started, my fees low at the time, did some freebies to hone what I'm doing, to really
Mhm.
learn to get comfortable in front of a crowd, um, to to be able to bring my experiences and what I've learned from my experiences into hopefully inspire and motivate their staff and motivate people to become the best version of them that they can be. And because of my experience working in the rec centers and all that stuff, that really carried directly into these family fun centers and all that, it all worked well. But then, hey, like I said, I realized, hey, a lot of other people could use this. And I started getting better and better. My presentations are very interactive. I showed the correlation between the body and mind. I make it fun. I get them to laugh. Although I would tell people all the time, if you're not funny, don't try to be because you're just going to piss people off. So don't do it. But if
Not
you
gonna land.
exactly, but if you've got a sense of humor, use it. Use it. And so that's what I started to do, and then it just kind of snowballed from there. I started raising my fee, and people would go, okay, and they would just I can tell a great story with one of that a little bit later if we have time. But yeah, where and people are going to challenge you. You got to decide, what it is you feel you're worth, and they'll decide whether you're worth it to them or not.
Yeah.
But don't sell yourself short, but really be passionate about what it is you're speaking about. Show the love for it, because I think that's one of the greatest compliments I get is they see my passion. they see that I love what I do, but I know my subject.
Yeah.
Where I can go into an audience and somebody can bring a story out or ask me a question and it doesn't get me off path. And sometimes I adapt to that and I go in a different direction than I had anticipated when I first went out there on stage. So
Yeah.
yeah,
No, you're right. People can smell inauthentic inauthenticity, right? You have to be authentic. You can't fake it on stage
no.
because it's going to be obvious. If you're funny, be funny. If you're not funny and you try to be funny, make it obvious that you know you're not funny and you're trying to and also what you said, which I love, is that no engagement is free if you're doing it right. You're either it's either highly valuable data, which you were wise enough at a pretty young age to figure out, I'm going to do these things to tune in a bit to my audience, tune into my own delivery style, tune into even knowing what I really do enjoy honing in on and talking about. All of that data culminated into the sought after speaker that you are today. There's no shortcuts. So I'm really glad that somehow at that young age, you knew that, and then that you had the courage to charge and then to raise your fee. So tell me that funny story about when you tried to raise your fee.
Well, it's funny is I had this woman call me who saw me speak at another event, and she goes, "We have to have you." And I said, "Great." I said, "This is what my fee is and stuff like that." And she was perfectly fine with that. She goes, "But I have to take it back to the powers that be, and there's four of us that are going to make the decision, right?" So so the one gal calls, so she goes back and then she comes back and says, "Okay, um, one of the gals wants to talk to you." And so I said, "Okay, that's fine. Have her call me." She calls me and she goes, "We have our conversation. We're talking. It goes fine." And she looks at me and she goes, "Well, I don't know that anybody's worth that." And I said to her, I said, "You know what? There's a lot of speakers out there. There's really good speakers." I said, "Obviously, we might not be a fit, and that's okay. So, thank you for your time. I appreciate it," or whatever. And the call ended. So I end up at another conference with the another group that was there, and the one person has saw me speak. They hired me to come in, but the other four people that were sitting there were thought the same thing. That is this guy really worth the money he's getting, right? So I'm speaking to a group of about 500. Okay, and they're all up in the audience. So what I do is now everybody when they get into an audience, everybody gets in their little cliques and they get into their groups.
Yeah.
These were owners, managers of the family fund centers that we were talking about, right? Okay. So first thing I do is I get up there and I go, what I like to say when I speak is, look, I don't want to speak at you. I want to speak with you. I want this to be a conversation. So if you have anything to add to it or you have a sort, please jump in. I have no problem with that because I'm moving a lot. Very interactive, like I said, telling stories, humor, demonstration. I'm bringing people up on stage left and right. I mean, just having a lot of fun with it. So I said, but first, before we do that, I want to bring everybody. I'd like everybody to come up closer because the place sat probably about 1,000, but they had a group of 500, so they were all scattered up, and it was like, you know, in college where you have they're kind of this go,
Mhm.
like a theater, right?
Yeah.
So I said, so look, why don't we? I really want this to be intimate. I really want to have some fun, and it'll be a good time for you to meet somebody new. So why don't you come down, fill in the seats, let's get everybody close. Two or three people moved, and that was it, right?
Mm.
So I sat there and I took a drink of water, and I went back and it's the same thing again. I said, okay, same thing. I wanted everybody to please come up. Again, nobody moves this time, right? So I step back, I get a drink of water. I'm just watching everybody. This guy, one of the guys, you could tell he's looking at me going, what did we hire this guy for? Right. It's like, why did we pick this guy? So I ask one more time and still nobody moves. Now that was the first time in a long time I got a little bit of a little sweaty, right? I kind of went, wow, okay. So I said, so I look and I go, a leader's not somebody who leads people. It's somebody who shows them the way and they make the choice. I said, how can you expect your management, your people to listen to your instructions when you can't even follow them yourself,
Mhm. Ooh,
right?
good.
And
Yeah.
then all of a sudden, everybody gets up and everybody comes and moves down and everybody, and then everybody's, so then I did a little exercise to introduce yourself to the person next to you and stuff, and it all turned out great. This guy walks up to me and goes, "That was
Brilliant.
freaking brilliant," right? Then I went to the presentation, everything went well, they were happy. I get a I get this gal walks up to me and goes, "We need to have you." And I go, "Well," she goes, "I'm the one who wondered if you were worth the money." She goes, You're worth the money."
Ah, I love that story. That is so good because
Yeah,
they're not paying you for your hour. They're
no,
paying you for the transformation that you bring, for the decades took you to create the strategies and prove the process, right? That's what they're paying for. And I think that a lot of speakers are like, yeah, how am I worth $10,000 an hour? Like, who am I? They're not paying for your hour. They're paying for the transformation that you bring. So I love that you stood your ground because you were newer in the process and it would have been really easy to start negotiating on your own value. And somehow again, you had that instinct that knew if I do that, that's a hard loop to get out of.
it is, and it's because you're questioning your own value,
Mhm.
and you can't do that. I mean, if you show that you doubt yourself, how are you going to sell whatever you're speaking about to the people in the audience?
Yeah.
I mean, you just can't do it. And I won't negotiate my fee. I just won't do it. However, I did one time. And the one time I did, you've really got to kind of look at who your audience is going to be and what's going to happen in the future. It was 1,800 HR professionals that were meeting
Oh,
at.
yeah. Good, great. Yeah, your
So,
people.
yeah,
Mhm.
so I knocked down, okay, what, I gave them a discount, not a major discount, but a discount. And I got so much business out of that. It was crazy. I mean, it was,
Right.
so that was yeah, okay, I'm willing to work with this, you know. So it was, yeah, it's again, it's perceived value. But if you really bring value to it, and you just got to know, you got to really believe in what you're speaking about and know your subject. And
Mhm.
if you do, that's going to come across because you've got to come across as the expert because that's what you're selling yourself as the expert. Oh,
There are certain stages I would even pay to be on, like JJ Virgin stage. It's expensive because I would know that I would be in front of the right people
yeah,
and I can monetize that audience. But that's much different than and if it's a nonprofit that I believe in, then I still invoice them, right, at the full full rate, but
right.
then you let it known that you brought it down because it's a pro bono or you brought it down for that reason, and you get the tax you have them write out the slip, right, for the tax because I want them never to think of me as that lower dollar speaker, because then you're gonna be stuck in breakout rooms for the rest of your career for however long you wind up eking out that career, right? Versus it being a viable, profitable, impactful,
Yeah.
prosperous speaking career. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and that the psychological side of it plays such a big role in it. I mean, it's just the way the mind is. Is perceived value is huge. I
Yeah.
mean, it really truly is. But you got to believe that you're worth it. And and first and foremost, if you struggle with that, if anybody out there struggles with worthiness or anything like that, you got to work on that along the process because if you're not feeling it, they're not going to feel it, and that definitely comes across as you said, disingenuous. They see right through that. They just see right through it, and it's an interesting thing now with speakers as I'm coming back in, re-energizing my career because I was thinking about retirement, but no, it doesn't. I mean, I got out of it for a
What
little bit,
is
but it
that?
just
That's just an American thing.
yeah, exactly. It's like it doesn't work for me. It didn't work for me. But marketing is constantly changing. Marketing is really constantly changing. Now you've got the internet. Now you've got the all of that. But I think the worst thing, but could be to your advantage if you really avoid it, because a lot of speakers I'm seeing are becoming really dependent on AI. And so everything's rote. It's just everything's the same. You got to allow your personality to shine through.
Yes.
That goes back to being genuine as opposed to disingenuous. Because if you start relying on AI to put your stuff together, if you start doing, you're going to run into trouble. And I'll give you a quick story on that. I write living here in the Charlotte area, I do a Ask Dr. Keith article every month for LKN magazine, Lake Norman magazine. And I went, my computer, my battery's kind of going wonky. I've had this laptop for a little while, so it's probably time to change it. Went into the Apple store, and they were going, yeah, you need to, um, you need to change the battery because it's over and then plus technology, you can't upload new stuff or whatever because it won't accept it, right? Well, the bigger thing is he's showing me the new computer and going, well, look at this with AI. You can change whatever. And I'm going, no, no, no. I don't want that. That's lazy because, my style is my style.
Yeah.
My speaking style is my style. I don't want to be like everybody else. And in my career, fortunately, I've spoken on the stage with Tommy Lasorda, with Zig Ziglar, with Wayne Dyer, over the years. I got to know Zig pretty well before he passed.
Mm.
And, and that's, knock on wood, was a blessing for me to watch
Yes.
the best,
Giant, giant.
you
Yeah.
know, and, and, but, again, it's that being who you are coming to, that's what's going to make people want to hire you. Not if you're like everybody else, because everybody else is everybody else. Be yourself, be genuine, have fun with it, and be passionate. You'll find success.
I love that you brought that up. I think that humans will always be valid because there's nothing that can duplicate what comes out of your heart, your spirit, your lived experiences versus we could both deliver the same exact word for word, right? Message, or at least kind of general message, and it will land so differently from you than it would from me just because of who we are and what our lived experiences are. So AI is not going anywhere.
No,
It's a powerful tool
it could
if
be
you use it
dangerous.
as a tool,
Yeah.
not a crutch. If you use it as a crutch, then it could actually harm you, and for all the reasons that you said, and for so much more. Let's say I'm, getting ready. I have a LinkedIn newsletter, Keynoter's Edge, for anybody who's looking.
By the way, it's
Um,
very good too. Read it. It's worth good information.
Thank you, Keith. But I'll come up with a concept, I'll write out an article, or my copywriter that's on our team will run with some ideas that I have. And we write it, but then we let AI I happen to be wordy, tighten it up, tone it up, give me some ideas that maybe I hadn't thought about. But then again, it's never cut and paste. It's never write me an article on ABC, right? It's us writing the article. That's kind of our tighten up check. And often they'll bring in some sort of piece of data that maybe I didn't have. And then we look at it again, and then it'll go out. Much, much different than utilizing that really powerful tool to do it for you, and you get lost in the process.
I'm
So
walking
you're
while we're talking, so I'll
yeah,
apologize here.
you're multi-talented man.
My computer's about ready to die, so I got to plug it in. Go ahead. I'm
You
sorry.
you told us you were an interactive speaker, so here we
There you
go.
go. There you go. I'm just moving. I'm on the move.
I love it. That's another thing that I have really seen it shift in the industry. That most corporations, if you're a corporate trainer, definitely if you are a conference trainer, the more interactive you are, the better, because we are in a whole different day and age where information used to be hard gotten, right? You had to go to a big library, look through the fish. Remember those microfiche things?
Yep.
Like
Yep.
half of our listeners are not even going to know what that is. Um, so information was hard gotten. Sitting and listening to a speaker give information had a different place, a different level of value. Now it's more about, okay, I know the things. I've got it. I've got Google. I've got the information. I just don't know how to implement it, how to put it into practice, how to motivate myself to do the thing. Right now, that's what they're coming for. So it is a little bit more interactive. Okay, you've got the information. Now, what are you going to do with it? Let's talk about this. Let's do the thing. So tell me a little bit about that. Was that just a natural part of your personality where you were always interactive, or did you find that as you were growing as a speaker that your audiences tend to have better transformation when you brought that element in?
I go back to what you were talking about a little bit earlier. We're talking about the interaction and how important that is. You were talking about people paying attention and holding their attention, right? Paying attention and holding their attention. Okay. One of the biggest issues I would talk about is the fact that I don't bring packets for you to have. If you, pen and a paper, if it's important enough for you to remember, you're going to write it down, and now you're searing it into your memory. And I don't do slides.
Oh, that's
I
interesting.
don't do PowerPoint. Why? Because when I'm on stage, if I got PowerPoint, where are they looking? Right? They're not looking at me, right? They're looking up at the PowerPoint. So they're not paying attention to the message that I'm giving.
Right.
So that's what I, really realized, and that okay, don't distract them, keep them here. So what I need to do is make sure that my messages are good enough to keep their attention. And what I do is I have strategies when I speak, like when at the end, when I have questions and people will raise their hands or whatever, I always pick people from the back. Because when people are in the back, what am I doing? I'm keeping everybody in the middle engaged.
Interesting.
Okay. Whereas if I start answering questions to the people in front, what happens? All the people in the back are on their phones or doing whatever they're doing because they're not interacting. I'm not being interactive with them. So, so I think that's really important. I think, and that's when I realized being interactive. So when I call people up on stage, and because I do a little hypnosis in there and do a lot of demonstration with that, and but I do fun stuff because I've got so many ways of showing the body mind connection and how powerful it is. And I make it a lot of fun, and I get them laughing with that. Everything, again, is just to hold their attention, to give a message that is going to be powerful. Hopefully they're going to remember, and one of the things I'll tell them too is just remember one thing in this whole presentation. If you can remember one thing, you choose to incorporate it into your life and it improves the quality of your life, I've done my job. That's all I'm asking. So look for one thing. And that holds their attention somewhat because you're not overwhelming them with a million different things.
Right.
So it's that's kind of the way. So I really realized that interactive, telling stories, humor if you've got it, these are great tools to really help them, with a positive transformation.
You said a few things. You said a lot of golden wisdom there, a hard-earned wisdom. One of the things that you talked about is if you deliver large, your current event is generally the door to your next gig, right? Your current gig is generally the door if you deliver in that interactive way, in that transformative way to your next engagement. Huge. That's really huge. In this day and age, are you having to do any outreach? Or are you really just attracting your next engagement from the ones that you're at? Like, how do you keep your calendar booked to the level that you want it booked?
I've got an assistant who does a lot of stuff for me, and what she'll do, and I'm all about marketing. I mean, to me, don't get my favorite saying is don't get too fat.
I love it.
It really is because what happens is a lot of times a lot of people get really busy in their schedule and stuff, and then they neglect their marketing. They neglect getting their name out there, and that's there's so much competition out there, but always say why not you? Like I always tell people, I don't have competition because nobody does what I do the way I do it,
Mhm.
and know that we're not going to resonate with everybody. and that's okay, because everybody's different. We're dealing with different personalities. We're dealing with everything. Your style is going to resonate with a lot, probably different people than mine does, or maybe there's a crossover where for both. You
Right.
just don't know, but you never worry about that. Again, if you've got a great message and you make it entertaining, it's a performance. It is a performance, but you make it entertaining and you've got good, solid information to pass on, wisdom to pass on, which will be passed on only if they choose to accept it. You know, which we
You are singing my song, Keith. I love hearing this from established speakers because I think the mentality is sadly in the speaking industry. Maybe once upon a time this actually worked, but you get on the stage with some big names. You get yourself out there, and then it's easy street. Like all the engagements just come. I don't know. You can better believe that those big names that you think it's coming easy to, they have a team that is making sure that they're booked. I
Yes.
love that you have an assistant. Any client I bring on, it's required that they don't have an assistant, and if they don't, that they have an assistant, and if they don't, we help them find one because it's absolutely critical. It doesn't There's no one agency or bureau. Nobody's going to drive your career the way that you're going to drive your career. I I love that you just got into that driver's seat, so that it doesn't you didn't allow the foot the to be taken off of the gas, right? You just have to keep that going.
And you have to be careful who it is, what bureaus you choose to work with. You better do some research with that, because not all of them are what they say they are, and not all of them are honest, and not all of them are looking out for your best interest. And that's why I love about you. I think, from what we've talked about, what I like how you do your business. I like the people, that I like that you're looking out for your people. And I think that's really, really important. And that's why I say, guys, listen to not only her podcast, but whatever she writes. It's got a lot of wonderful information in there. So keep an eye on that stuff, definitely. But
Thank you, Keith. I did not even pay him, I promise. Thank you. That's fabulous. I really, really appreciate that. You also spoke about overfeeding your audience. That's brilliant as well, Keith, because that's so you want them to walk away with a tangible transformation, right? I walked into this room, didn't even know I had this thing going on, and then Keith just shared some things that all of a sudden there's a light bulb. And I am different. I am walking out of this room a different human being. I've got some actionable things that I can put into practice. If you try to, I call it the whole pot of pasta, right? Because I'm Italian. If you pour that, my grandmother makes that Sicilian 3-day pasta sauce, right? I love it.
my wife, she's part Italian, part Irish, and the greatest pasta ever. So yeah.
You cannot make pasta sauce in an hour. I'm sorry. It's not. It doesn't do it. Um, But as a little girl, yeah, as Italians do, right? They mound the food, and it's an insult. Like there's no questioning that you have to eat the whole thing. And I remember thinking, I just actually wrote an article about my grandfather Ignazio's raviolis, if you want to catch that. But that had to do with making the raviolis, and then I was so excited to eat them, but then the plate was so big that it became dreadful. Like, how am I going to possibly get through this? Same thing as a speaker. They want a bowl of nourishment that they can digest and feel transformed, but they just want enough, and then they'll seek you out for the rest,
Yeah.
right? They'll seek you out once that's gotten in there, on a cellular level. You're a psychologist. You probably can verbalize this a whole lot better than I'm doing. But then they're ready for the next. The connection is made, and now but you try to give it all, and as a speaker, you're gonna be heart-centered. You're not gonna be a speaker if you're not heart-centered and really wanna make a change in other people's lives. So we do have a tendency to just pour it all out there, and giving more is not more. So I'm really glad you brought that up. How do you temper that for yourself?
Well, and see, that's the biggest thing sometimes, because say they hire you to do a 30-minute presentation instead of an hour. And I've been doing it so long, I can fill a lot of time with a lot, because once I get going, my mind goes, okay, there's that point. Oh, but I want to add this on, or I want to add this on and stuff. And so sometimes your pace gets faster because you want to shove all this information into what you're doing. Whereas if you go at a nice pace and you give really the bullet points, the important things, and then during the question and answer they'll come back and say, hey, I just want you to elaborate a little more on this. So they'll come back and ask you for more information if you hit something that's really important to them. So take advantage of that. The other thing too is the less you give them, and if you keep them wanting more, they're going to hire you for management. They're going to hire you for, so, or they may bring you back in a couple of years, or they may bring you for another division, later that year or whatever. It's really you're feeding them good information. You're not overwhelming them with information because, think about, we talk about multitask oriented versus singularly task focused, right? And people say, well, men are singularly task focused, women are multitask oriented. Okay. But studies show that being singularly task focused is better because it's better to get something done and do it right than to try and shove everything, all these, because you lose focus. You don't do it as well. You do, when you go to multitask, right? So my analogies to that is always think of a pizza. When you eat a pizza, you may eat 4 pieces, but you're not going to shove them in your mouth all at once, right? You
Yeah.
dole it out, one at a time, one at a time. And it's the same thing in speaking. It's, give them, enough that they can absorb it, that they can take it and incorporate it instead of going like it's too much. Like when I've worked with hoarders, what I would tell people, what I tell them is, I want you to get sheets. And they go, why? I said, because we're going to go in to the room or whatever, and it's usually an emotionally based, the hoarding, right? And so their house is a mess. So I said, we're going to put sheets over everything you're not going to work on right now, and you're just going to work on this area.
Oh, yeah.
Wonderful. And it's the same thing. You know?
Perfect analogy. That is perfect. And you are a subconscious brain expert, right? So I love that. Do you know how the brain works?
Oh yeah. Well, our subconscious mind, unconscious, they call it different things, is our feelings, our emotions, our memories, and our imagination. It's 99.9% of our mind. It dictates our daily behavior. It's where
Mhm,
all the I do it's, but I don't know why I do it lie.
mhm.
What we use on a daily basis is our conscious analytical mind. It's 1/10 of 1% of our mind. We don't use it all in our lifetime. That's a 20-year Harvard medical study on the mind. So I always look at negative emotions like weeds. If you pull a weed, you don't get the root, the weed comes back.
Yeah.
So that's why I really, unfortunately, trained with, 3 of the world's best hypnotherapists because of my injury and
Yeah.
whatnot, the program I got involved in. And it's just, hypnosis is a great tool to find the root of what created the problem and to bring the positive learnings into the subconscious and change behaviors. It's just wonderful. And it's great for demonstration. I mean, it is
Oh,
wonderful.
I bet. I'm
Oh,
gonna I'm gonna ask you a personal question that probably has little to do with speakers and everything to do with speakers. Right? So we all know we all have something. Like you cannot be a human and not have a trauma of one way or another. And if you happen to have gotten to to a certain age and not have any trauma, we all got to experience one together in 2020, right? Where the rug was pulled out from all of our feet. Some of us, many of us had to say goodbye to a very precious loved one for the last time through a screen
right.
or at very best through a mask or a glass wall. So there's trauma. There's and I don't even think that there's varying levels. Certainly, some are more horrific and tragic, and some, but where how we feel it, our body takes in any level of trauma very similarly. So this is my question. So I'm like, okay, we all have it, right? And it holds us back if we don't admit that new level, new devil, right? New level, you've got it going on. You are successful. You're doing great. You get to this new level, old insecurities come in, the comparison complex comes in, all the things start happening. As a doctor, do you think we all have to go back to our childhood? 'Cause I really don't.
No, you know what? It's okay. As a psychologist, I was taught that say there's major trauma, right? And you hit a point. We all have trauma in our lives, but our feelings are never wrong.
Mhm.
What happened to make us feel that way maybe we it was a misconception or a misunderstanding,
Compartmentalize, yeah.
or yeah, or but perception is reality. What we believe, what we think, is it makes a huge difference, right? But um, a lot of traumas that are not, it can be a major thing, it can be a minor thing said at the wrong time. Let me give you a quick story. I had a gal who worked with me, bulimic. Okay. So came into me, she was bulimic since she was 16 years old. Or no. I take that back. She was um, yeah, bulimic since she was 16, but the what created it started sooner than that. Okay. Some things can manifest quickly, some things take a long time to manifest, and some things can be just something said at a wrong time that catches us. And in this case, that's exactly what it was. So she came in, she was 24 at the time, beautiful girl, right? Says, look, I've been bulimic since I'm 16. I'm still struggling. I can't seem to find. I've been to all the doctors, had all the tests, had all this stuff done. And she goes, so here she wanted to do hypnotherapy. It was her, her last resort. She came to me. So over a series of sessions, we found the event that started the negative behavior. She was in middle school and had a boyfriend. Okay. There was God and this boyfriend and a waiver as to who was more important.
Mhm.
Right.
Yep.
So, um, so anyway, so one day she got up late for school and she threw her hair back in a ponytail, threw on some baggy clothes, and she walks into school. Now they hung out in the same peer group, the whole deal. I mean, it was that, right? And he sees her, he looks at her, he goes like that, and he goes, "Hey, fatty."
Ah,
She goes, "Oh my God," in the chair with that, because you're very aware in hypnosis. It's not mind
yeah,
control, it's not anything, it's not, right?
right.
So she goes, "Oh my God, I knew he was kidding." Well, consciously she did, but subconsciously, that 99.9, no.
Mm,
She latched onto that. As she got older, it developed into bulimia. A lot of times something happens younger, anxiety can turn anxiety attacks, can turn into panic attacks. Some things manifest quickly, some things take time to manifest. It just depends on the person and the situation. Usually it's more something more, and usually it takes more than one event like that, and something that seems like that's not that big a deal. But to her it was,
yeah.
because of who it was. So it's pretty amazing how our mind is incredibly powerful. I mean, unbelievably powerful, and so
I think it's very fascinating, and it's like this to me, it's Star Trek, right? It's this frontier. And the more you understand your own mind, and I love the way you said feelings never lie or feelings are never wrong, then you can meet your people where they're at, those people in front of you. If you really do understand, at least even a little bit, how the mind and emotions work, then you can meet them in a whole new way. I'm sure that that serves you well on the
oh,
stage.
well, it does, and it's the great equalizer is questions too.
Yeah.
You know, like sometimes somebody says something wrong to you, and you take it wrong, and you go, and they go, well, what did you mean by that? There's a good question to ask, and they go, well, what do I mean by what? Well, you said this. Well, no, I didn't. Well, that's what I heard. So now I'm giving you the opportunity to let's straighten this out,
Yes.
because right now my feelings are hurt or my whatever. And again, it's not like my buddies, sometimes their wife or girlfriend or whatever would sit there and go, something will happen, they'll go, "You're wrong," and I'll go, "Stop, they're not wrong." For how they feel, I go, "Just, you need to talk about what it is that made her feel that way, and maybe that was wrong." So it's then that's all about the communication stuff. I mean, it's
Well,
just
that
getting into
paragraph right there probably saved 5 marriages today. Just ask the questions, rephrase it so they understand how you're hearing it, and they can let you know what they actually meant. Yeah, maybe you saved mine. No, I'm just kidding. All right. By this time in the show, I know that there are plenty of Speak Pact audience members who want to know how they find you. How do you like to be found?
You can go to www.keithoneill, keithoneill.com. You can go there and do we get phone numbers on here? Should we do that or not?
Sure, if you that's up to you.
Okay. You can reach me at 949-232-5554. And yeah, that's how you can get me.
You
So
are one brave soul. Yeah, go you. Okay.
well, it's
So
on the website anyway, so it doesn't matter. It's there. Right? Go to the website. There's my number. Just one more step. So
Yikes. So it's, Keith, Keith, like, no fanciness there, but O'Neill has 2 L's, so Oneill for those who are just listening in, but of course, you're gonna be in the show notes as well, and I know that you're on LinkedIn, so
I
if
am.
you happen to be on LinkedIn, connect with Keith. He is a wealth, as you can tell. I'm sure all the way up to this point, something has transformed in you just by what he has shared so far.
Well, thank you. It's been fun. I've enjoyed this tremendously. So
This has been a lot of fun, and we've gone long. I could go another hour because this has been a lot of fun. But you know the signature question at the end,
okay.
and that is, I'm sure the landscape has changed quite a bit from when you started out your speaking career as a 20 something year old, right? 27, 28,
Uh,
29. Um, And now, if you were to start right now and really want to elevate your voice to that next level, what's a practical, tangible, actionable things that any one of us we speakers who want to elevate our career to the next level could it take and put into practice today?
the first thing I would tell anybody, if you're just learning how to speak, even if you've been speaking for a long time, take an improv class.
Oh, okay.
Take an improv class. They'll strip you naked. They'll challenge you. And you'll learn how to really feel comfortable in front of a group and feel comfortable even in uncomfortable situations. Because that's one big thing I found over the years of speaking. There are going to be times where there's a question or a comment or something happens that could make you very uncomfortable. But if that taking the improv class will help you better than anything to learn to adapt.
Wow, that was not the direction I thought you would. That is pretty amazing. So just go to your community college or wherever it might be and take an improv class.
Or local comedy clubs, they do them all the time and sort of thing. I know, I'm sorry, I took it in a different direction
No,
than
I love it because I do not find myself funny. Like, I have a sister, she can walk into the room and not say a word, and you just wanna laugh with her. Me, I'm a little bit more intense when want all the details, and I'm doing but, so I don't see myself as funny, but I've always kinda wanted to be. So, I thought me in an improv class would, like, not go ahead.
I was gonna say, it's not necessarily about being funny. I was able to adapt to that story that I told you about the audience not moving because of that. Because that allowed me to handle the situation. So it's not even about you becoming funny or trying to be funny. It's really just being able to really just stay calm and adapt to whatever's thrown at you and feel confident with what you do.
Ooh, I love that. Please let us know if you are listening and you actually sign up for an improv class because I'm gonna start looking around. I think that's amazing advice. And two, as a speaker, if you're not pushing the boundaries of your own kind of comfort bubble, then how are you going to help your audience do the same? Always be pushing the edges of your own comfort bubble, right? Was that good, Mr. Doctor?
Life begins outside your comfort zone.
Life begins outside of your comfort zone. It's really the only way that you're gonna prosper and really get to the next level of anything. You
Got
have to push past what you already know.
That's right, and challenge your fears.
Well,
You
you've
know,
been a wealth of knowledge, and I know you've got so much more, to give. So go find Keith O'Neill. You will not be sorry, and I just so value the time that you've spent with me today. Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for allowing me to be a part of this, and you're wonderful. This has been wonderful. Thank you so much.
All right. And you all know we love flowers. So give Keith and me flowers for the time that we've spent with you today by posting it forward, giving a like, commenting. We love your comments. Let us know if you're going to go take that improv class. And we'll be forever grateful. Ciao, ciao for now.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
That was amazing. Thank you very much.